The courtroom was hauntingly quiet as 5-year-old Emily Carter entered through the towering oak doors. Her small fingers wrapped tightly around the leash of Rex, a German shepherd bearing a long, jagged scar along his flank. Every eye turned toward the girl as she cautiously approached the witness stand, her steps timid yet filled with purpose. Judge Mark Sullivan, a veteran of the bench with decades of legal acumen, leaned in subtly, scrutinizing the child with calm intensity. He understood the immense gravity placed upon her shoulders. Emily was the lone eyewitness in an attempted child abduction. Her testimony could imprison a dangerous man for life. But one issue loomed large. Emily hadn't uttered a word since the traumatic incident. Across the aisle, at the defense table, sat Richard Hale, his demeanor composed, even smug. At 45, the software engineer with an unremarkable appearance had been arrested after being identified near the scene. But his defense was airtight. No physical proof, no confession, and a witness who wouldn't speak. His lawyer had shaped the case around undermining the traumatized girl's capacity to identify her attacker. And then something extraordinary unfolded. As Emily settled into the witness chair, her green eyes locked onto Richard Hale. Her fingers gave a small, deliberate twitch, barely perceptible unless one knew what to look for. It was a gesture learned through weeks of therapy, a coded cry for help. Only two in the courtroom noticed, Rex and Judge Sullivan. Rex reacted immediately. His body stiffened, ears standing erect, muscles drawn taut. A low growl rumbled from deep in his chest, ominous and unmistakable. His amber eyes fixed on Hale with unwavering intensity. The room stirred as a murmur rippled across the gallery. This wasn't a service dog simply responding to a distressed handler. This was something raw, instinctual, ancient. Judge Sullivan's gavel slammed down hard, the sound thunderous in the still room. "Court will recess for 15 minutes, he announced, his tone tight and urgent. Prosecutor Jenna Collins threw him a questioning glance, but he didn't meet her eyes. His focus remained on Emily, clinging to Rex as if the dog were the only solid thing in a world gone awry. As the gallery emptied, Judge Sullivan stayed rooted, mind-racing. He had presided over countless trials, seen every manner of human behavior, but never this. Never had a therapy dog reacted with such unequivocal certainty. What had Rex recognized? And what did it mean? Outside in the corridor, Emily crouched. Beside Rex, her small hands buried in his fur. Her mother, Sarah Carter, knelt next to her, brushing back curls with shaky fingers. "Sweetheart, are you all right?" she whispered. Emily gave no reply. She didn't need to. She clung tighter to Rex, pressing her body close to his. A few steps away, Jack Monroe, a grizzled FBI agent with years in the field, watched in silence. His instincts, honed over decades of tracking child predators, stirred. He leaned toward Judge Sullivan. "Something rattled that dog," he said quietly. "I'd stake my badge he knows Hale from somewhere." Sullivan's jaw tightened. "Then we need to find out where." Meanwhile, in the defense team's private conference room, Richard Hale sat across from his attorney, Michael Graves. Alone now, the cool confidence slipped from Hale's face, replaced by something harder, colder. His fingers tapped nervously on the polished surface of the table. "The girl didn't talk," he muttered under his breath, "but the dog." Graves raised an eyebrow. "What?" Hale forced a thin smile. "Nothing," he replied, but his mind was racing. That damn dog? He hadn't accounted for it, and now he knew Rex posed a serious threat. The therapy dog might be the undoing of everything. Back in the judge's chambers, Sullivan sat still, his robes folded across his lap, the sound of the courtroom's exit doors still echoing in his ears. He didn't believe in coincidences. And Rex's reaction had just offered the clearest sign yet. A silent but undeniable message. The child recognized the man, and so did the dog. Emily Carter, once a joyful chatterbox of a child, had become silent. At 5, she was the kind of girl who filled every room with laughter, mischief, and curiosity. Her bright eyes had sparkled as she recited fairy tales and cradled her stuffed animals. Fear had been a stranger until that afternoon. It was a picture-perfect spring day. The breeze carried the scent of blossoming tulips, and sunlight filtered through the trees. From the kitchen window, Sarah Carter had watched her daughter dance across the yard in her pink dress, spinning like a ballerina. Her husband, David, would be home in a few hours. She debated whether to start dinner. At 3:42 p.m., the phone rang. It was her sister calling from out of state. Sarah stepped inside, thinking she'd only be a minute. 4 minutes, that's all it took. When she returned, the backyard gate was ajar. Panic stabbed her chest. Emily was still there, but so was someone else. A black van idled by the curb, side door open. A man crouched beside Emily, smiling. "I have puppies in my van," he said. "Special ones. They need a little girl to love them. Want to see?" Sarah's world tilted. Her body moved before her mind caught up. "Emily!" she cried. The man's head snapped up. His smile dropped. His eyes turned cold. In a heartbeat, he seized Emily's arm. Emily didn't scream. She didn't run. She stared, frozen by fear. Across the street, Martha Jenkins, an elderly nurse walking her terrier, saw everything. Her voice, brittle but sharp, cut through the, air. "Hey! Get away from that child!" The man hesitated. His grip faltered. That brief moment was enough. Emily broke free and bolted to her mother's arms. The van's engine roared. Tires screeched as it peeled away, leaving scorched rubber behind. Sarah held her daughter tightly, heart hammering in her chest. But Emily didn't sob. She made no sound. She only buried her face in Sarah's shoulder and trembled. Graves immediately rose to his feet. "Objection, Your Honor. The witness's identification is unreliable. She has not spoken since the incident, and this gesture is open to interpretation." Judge Sullivan held up a hand, his expression stern. "The jury will disregard the defense's commentary until a formal ruling is made." "Continue, Ms. Collins." Jenna Collins gave a nod, her focus still gently on Emily. "Emily, thank you. You're doing so well," she said softly. "Do you remember what the man said to you that day?" There was a pause. Emily remained still, her fingers twisting in Rex's thick fur. And then she whispered again. "He said he had puppies." The courtroom went silent. A stunned hush blanketed the room. Even Graves didn't immediately rise. Jenna's voice didn't waver. "Emily, was that man?" She gestured toward Richard Hale. "The one who said those words to you?" Emily nodded. Once, firm. A low murmur spread across the courtroom, rising like a wave. Hale's jaw clenched, his composure beginning to crack under the weight of the moment. Graves stood again, his tone more urgent. "Your Honor, I must reiterate my concern. The child's trauma has clearly affected her memory. Her statements may be suggestive, influenced by therapy or the presence of the dog." Judge Sullivan looked down at the defense attorney. "Mr. Graves, you may cross-examine when it's your turn. For now, sit down." Graves obeyed, but tension buzzed in his every movement. Collins returned to Emily. "One last thing, sweetheart," she said gently. "If you're scared, you can just squeeze Rex's leash, okay?" Emily glanced at the German Shepherd, then back at Jenna. She gave the faintest of nods. The prosecutor turned to the bench. No further questions at this time, Your Honor. Judge Sullivan looked toward the defense. Cross-examination. Graves stood slowly. Briefly, Your Honor. He approached the stand with a measured, almost rehearsed calm. Emily, he began, keeping his voice mild. I know this is hard for you. I just want to ask a few questions. Can you look at me? Emily didn't respond. Her eyes remained fixed on a spot just beyond his shoulder. You've been through something very frightening, Graves continued. And sometimes after things like that, our minds can play tricks on us. People might show you pictures or tell you stories. Isn't that right? Emily's fingers curled tighter around the leash. Graves pressed on, his tone soft but laced, with doubt. Has anyone ever told you this man was the one who hurt you? Still no answer. Rex shifted beside her, his eyes locked on Graves. The defense attorney hesitated, then turned to the judge. Your Honor, we request that the court consider the reliability of these gestures. Without verbal confirmation, we can't be sure. Suddenly, Emily's voice, small but clear, cut through the room. He grabbed me. Gasps echoed. Judge Sullivan leaned forward, surprised. Graves froze, his expression faltering. Emily, can you clarify? He asked carefully. But she was done. Her small arms wrapped around Rex's neck, her head buried in his thick fur. No further questions, Graves muttered. Judge Sullivan called a brief recess, the court stunned into silence. In the hallway, Collins exhaled deeply as she walked beside Sarah Carter. She did it, she said. She really did it. Sarah's voice trembled. I didn't think she'd speak. I thought we'd lost her forever. Rex sat calmly at Emily's side, her small hand resting atop his head. Back inside the courtroom, Richard Hale sat motionless. But beneath the table, his foot tapped a frantic rhythm. His attorney leaned in. She's talking now. That changes. Things. Hale didn't reply. His eyes were locked on Rex, the animal who, without a word, had upended his defense. Days that followed, the trial intensified. Forensics experts testified that trace fibers found near the scene matched materials recovered from Hale's home. Monroe and Agent Grant described the striking pattern of similar cases stretching back months. Children approached with promises of puppies, only to vanish. But the moment that sealed the courtroom's focus was when Rex was formally introduced as a certified support and former K-9 unit. Dr. Laura Bennett took the stand, explaining the bond between the child and the animal. Rex doesn't just comfort Emily, she said. He responds to her emotional and physical cues with incredible accuracy. He was trained for law enforcement. His reaction in that courtroom wasn't random. The defense tried to poke holes. They suggested Rex was responding to Emily's distress, not to Hale himself. But then came the most damning piece of testimony. Martha Jenkins returned to the stand and confirmed she had seen Hale before. Not once, but several times. He used to park near the school, she said. Watching. I thought he was a parent. With each passing hour, the prosecution's case grew stronger. Finally, the day came for closing arguments. Jenna Collins stood before the jury. This case isn't just about evidence, she said. It's about truth. A truth that a terrified little girl fought to find again. A truth that was pulled from the silence by trust. By a dog who never gave up on her. She turned toward Emily and Rex. Sometimes the truth doesn't come in words. Sometimes it comes in courage, and that courage deserves justice. When the jury returned, the entire room held its breath. On the charge of attempted kidnapping, we find the defendant, Richard Hale, guilty. A cry of relief escaped Sarah's lips. Emily didn't move, but her fingers gently stroked Rex's fur. He leaned against her quietly, still and loyal. Justice had finally spoken, and this time so had Emily.